Oh shit, I guess we're going. Hello everybody. Okay, that started quicker than I thought it would. Welcome. Nice to see everybody here. I've already got my friends Mossy Pear, as well as another friend here, Peggy Aki, and Melissa Madrid. Nice to see all you guys here. Mystic Mouse, and I'm sure many people are going to be piling in. Hi, Toxica. It's nice to see everybody. My name is Dustin Cormier, and today we are watching How to Rock Astrology. Today we are going to be discussing, by the way, I'm in a different place than usual. Hopefully everything is going okay. I'm not using my usual computer. I almost feel like I'm too bright. I want to be more dark and scorpionic. I don't know how to do that. I used to know how to do that. Ooh, this looks kind of neat. Oh well. Anyway, so this is something I got to play with at some point. But kind of using a new computer here and sort of just playing around with things. Good, you guys can hear me okay. I'm glad to hear that. It's a real pleasure to see you folks. So, welcome. My name is Dustin Cormier. Today, we're watching an episode of How to Rock Astrology. In particular, we're going to be discussing, the placement of, drum roll. Today we're going to be discussing Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, where Jupiter is exalted. So this is a profound place for Jupiter to be. I can see, I thank you all for being patient with the technology that I'm attempting to use here. But as we can see, today's episode is discussing Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. And this is where Jupiter is exalted. So there's much to be said about this particular sign combination. And we're going to get into it today as best as we can. Okay. So this is a live stream, folks. If you have any thoughts, if you have any questions, feel free to throw it at me into our general group chat. Now, if you have Jupiter in Cancer, you should probably consider yourself lucky. It is considered to be typically the most, as it's exalted, sometimes exaltation can be difficult depending on the planet. For example, if you have Mars exalted in Capricorn, it's likely that you have Mars energy coming out of your ears. And that can be very constructive for all things related to Mars. But if you're a sign that is, if you're like a very Saturnian person whose energy is really based on resting and slowly, diligently figuring out the nature of a situation, having a Capricorn Mars, the Mars energy is a malefic energy, and it'll bump into Saturn a lot. So exalted planets we often say that you have to be careful. We can't always just say that exalted planets are always good. Even Venus exalted in Pisces can bring problems to planets that the moon has for an enemy, including Jupiter. Jupiter has no enemies in astrology. So Jupiter, by being exalted, is not bumping knees with any other planets. It's not a malefic. It's the great benefic. So having an exalted Jupiter is one of those things where we can put our thumbs up and say, this is nothing but good things happening with this placement. So congratulations. I'm sure that you are probably expressing a lot of radiant receptivity to the world around you, and I'm sure that the people around you love you for it. So I know a few people with this placement. I am born with Jupiter in Virgo, and my brother is 1990. He was born with Jupiter in Cancer. So a lot of his friends, a lot of people I know are born at that time who have Jupiter exalted. So I have a lot of good friends with this consciousness, and I'm blessed to know them. So it's a good thing to have Jupiter exalted, no matter what, unlike all the other planets where exaltation can be a problem. Jupiter is the great benefic. It is the planet that has no enemies and does the best things for us in the zodiac. We're going to start discussing a little bit about where this is at and what exactly this means. Now, I usually give myself several texts to read from, of course, when I am reading. And of course, I should mention at this point that I'm a Tropical Vedic astrologer. So when I use the word Vedic, I'm talking about how the ancient Indian people have always interpreted the sign of Jupiter in Cancer, for example, and Jupiter being exalted. Now, I'm a tropical user, so I would measure things the same way Westerners do, in case you're interested. But whether you're tropical or sidereal, Jupiter in Cancer in both systems means the same thing. So I welcome both on a video like this. So, what's Jupiter all about? In each one of these videos, I kind of go into it a bit. I've been spending a lot of time. I'm writing a book right now in my father's cottage. Right now I'm at another place. Someone just rang my doorbell. I have to check it. You'll have to excuse me for one moment, folks. This shouldn't take too long. We're good. My mom's got it. I thought I was the only one. As I said, I'm hanging out somewhere where I don't usually hang out. Okay. Jupiter. Jupiter is the guru of the planetary pantheon. What exactly does this mean whenever we hear about it? I've been hanging out at my dad's cottage, and I've been having lots of fires. I've got a little kunda, a little square brass bowl that you can have fires in. And throughout the colder months, I was spending a lot of time going to a spot where I would have a fire. And I would have to make sure that, especially I'd have to keep this fire going because it was cold up here in Canada. And I wanted to keep the fire going. Now, when I've never been much of an outdoorsy, woodsy person. I'm at the age of Jupiter, 32, and I'm getting more into Jupiter and into nature. Now, when I first started having these fires, I learned that fire can be a bitch. It's a hard thing to deal with. It's wild. It's got an energy of its own. It's got a life of its own. Fire is wild. It's a very wild aspect of nature that it's easy for us humans to forget about. But we have this fire inside of us. Of course, the fire is not Jupiter. The fire is Surya, the sun. It is our inherent nature. It is the soul nature. Now, Ernst Wilhelm has a great video. It's called The Habits of Jupiter. If you watch that, you'll hear about how when astronomers are looking for galaxies that might have extraterrestrial life, there's so many stars out there, and they would waste their time trying to peek at every single one. So they've needed to develop a method of knowing, what's the first thing we look for to ensure that a galaxy is going to have life on it. And the first thing they look for when they're scanning the sky, they look for a sun that spins on its barycenter. It has a little bit of a wobble effect. Whoa. My internet's going to clip out, I guess, once in a while. So the sun of a galaxy that has life on it is going to have this wobble to it. That means there's a Jupiter there. Because Jupiter takes 12 years to roll around the sun like it does. Our Jupiter is like the liver of our galaxy. And it stops planets and asteroids from coming into the inner part of the inner galaxy. And this rotation is part of what keeps our sun spin in its motion and all the other planets in its revolution. So Jupiter actually moves the sun. It's the only planet that actually has the sun do this wobble. Astronomically, Guru Jupiter is a key part of the movement of our inner sun. It's not the inner sun itself. The sun is our career. The sun is our dharma. The sun is what we do. It's what we are, and it's what we do. Jupiter is like the etheric ventilation of air, of oxygen. Oxygen's a better word because it's not air in the astrological sense. Jupiter gives the ventilation that allows the fire to burn brighter, stronger, better. As well, Jupiter is the fuel. Jupiter is our inspiration. Essentially, Jupiter is our nature. Or rather, it is the carved conscious path of our nature. It's the realization of our sun. That's why they call it Jupiter. There is a way, and now this is the reason why I brought up the fire metaphor. Fire has a nature to it. And you're not going to really learn it. There's a lot that you can learn from reading a book about the nature of fire. But at some point, you've just got to sit in front of your little kunda or your little fire pit, and you got to start just throwing sticks in there and start learning how to sustain the fire. How do you remain inspired? How do you remain healthy? How do you tune into the fire nature within you? Remember, fire is a bitch. It's hungry. It's like a child. It's just, mom, give me all the wood. So Jupiter, in a lot of ways, relates with being a parent. How does a parent organize a child's reality so that the child has what it needs in order to nurture itself, so that the parent can still live its life? Part of a parent's life is giving to the child. Jupiter is very relevant to parents everywhere, and parents really ought to take this video as a sort of general idea of Jupiter into consideration. When you learn about the nature of fire, what you realize is that you need to prepare big logs and chunks of wood, and then you have to prepare smaller twigs and bits of wood. Hello there, Dr. Aniket, Srivastava, and also Marcella. Nice to see you. And Usi. In order to learn, when you learn the nature of fire, you learn you've got to have big logs that you place on the fire, and that's a long burning thing. And you'll notice that there needs to be also coals underneath the fire as well. So you develop these big logs, medium logs, and small logs. You put them all in the fire. You get the small logs going. They eventually light up the medium logs, and then that allows a bed of coals that can slowly cook the large logs. This is all the sun, the Surya within us. It's our nature. It's our inherent who we are that's cooking here. Now, when I went out, I was trying to meditate. I wanted to write. I was writing in my book. I wanted to meditate. And as I was writing, I kept noticing at the very beginning, when I didn't know the nature of the fire, I didn't prepare any wood. I just prepared as much as I thought I needed to. And then I would light it all up. I have no extra wood. And I was like, oh, that'll last me for a while. And I'm sitting here for like 10 minutes, and then the fire blazes through. And then 15 minutes later, I'm getting cold already, and I look over, and I'm like, my God, this fire is pesky. You need more wood already? Gosh. So I would have to stop what I'm doing and regenerate the fire. How often do we get depressed because we have not prepared ourselves for the inspirational nature that is within us? We have to stop everything. I got to go on vacation. I got to change things. I got to change my way of life. I got to change how I've been doing things. And then we orient ourselves in a completely new direction. And we've lost the key. Every time you create a new fire, you lose the bed of coals. You got to completely stop what you're doing to regenerate this thing. Someone with a good Jupiter knows how to carve their life out so that they have the wood, the fuel, the inspiration prepared to keep their sun ignited. And the way that we do this is through, is to learn your own nature. And Cancer very much resonates with that. I'm just going to see if I can close my window. Oh, all the things at once today. That's okay. Cancer is the nature of ourselves. And it's a water sign. It's a Brahmin sign. It resonates with listening. It's Cancer, it's listening that allows us to tune in to the nature of ourselves. Because that's what Jupiter is doing. Jupiter listens to the nature of the self. Someone who's a Cancer rising will know this because they have their rising sign where Jupiter is exalted. It's especially nice if you're Cancer rising with Jupiter in Cancer like my brother is. It's interesting because he doesn't go about telling people how wise he is on YouTube like I do with my Jupiter in Virgo. He just lives his life and lives the quiet Jupiter existence. But people revolve around him, not only because he's worked out a way that allows his inspiration to keep going, but he also does the same for other people. People love how my brother listens to them, how someone with Jupiter in Cancer will learn the nature of things by experiencing it. They learn it in abstract ways, and they learn it, their abstractions come from the experience of giving themselves time and space to observe the nature of the fire. What do I have to do to keep this thing sustained? And this is where Jupiter relates to self-realization. Fire has a way that you can best sustain it. And your inherent fire, there is an inherent way that your inspiration can be sustained. And it's through your inner nature. It's the way that you are. You put a gardener in a garden, then they're going to do very well with that. You put a soldier on a battlefield, and they're going to do very well with that. There is an inherent way to each of us. And there's no formula that, like what we're looking for is a path that you can take to ensure that you gain the most energy and inspiration for the least amount of effort. So that when you're trying to meditate, you're trying to write in your book, you've learned how to prepare the logs and everything for the fire so that you can do the work that's most meaningful to you. So you've learned to prepare your life and go on a path that's inspiring. That's essentially what this comes down to. And to have faith that your inspiration is going to carry you the farthest. Just like when you are having a fire, instead of just putting a big clunky chunk of wood on there and then it fizzles out, I'm taking on a bit, like let's say a person who's a doctor who's being pushed by their parents because they want to be a doctor. Their parents want them to be a doctor. It's this big, huge roll. So you just put this big chunk of wood on there, and the fire's not big enough yet for that, so you're young, and you're trying to get together little sticks to burn this giant hunk of wood. But the giant hunk of wood is just not doing anything for the fire. That's like Jupiter in Capricorn. It's like somebody who is not listening to the nature of their inspiration, to the nature of how fire wants to go. It's better to digest your inspiration and take the time to find out what really inspires you, and then move towards gaining the energy so that you can tackle that bigger desire that you have in a patient way. You can be a doctor. There are doctors with Jupiter in Cancer, but they've probably oriented it in their lives so that, what do I have to do to keep this log burning and slowly, constantly going while still having the smaller inspiration along the way? There's no formula that fits all for everybody in the way of finding out your nature. Everybody's nature is different. But there is a universal way to discover the inner nature, and this is self-realization. So, I've already spent a lot of time talking about this. Let's start getting into the nature of Jupiter in Cancer. What is it that Jupiter in Cancer, what is it about the personality of Jupiter in Cancer that makes it so special? Mainly, it's that it's a listener. And it doesn't listen necessarily to others for the sake of being stuck on listening to others at the expense of itself. It listens to itself, because the self in one is the self in all. When Jupiter in Cancer listens to its own nature, it learns the nature of humanity at large. It learns the nature of life at large, because life reflects humanity, and humanity reflects life. Ether is said to relate with listening, and it also relates with Kapha. In Ayurveda, Kapha is the water and earth. It's the feminine vibration of the doshas. And to put it succinctly, true listening means letting go of what you wanted to say. A true Jupiter person is someone who's a good listener, who will really hear what you're trying to say before they try to make their point, before they try to say something. And they'll apply this to themselves as well. There's something very significant of Pisces relating to the 12th house of loss. Pisces relating to the 12th house of loss in this way, a good Jupiter almost resonates with, not necessarily, but resonates with a healthy Pisces, is what we would want to say. A good Jupiter resonates with a healthy Pisces, which means it can let go of what it thinks it needs to do right now in order to listen to the deeper storms coming, to the deeper lightning within inside the soul. There's an opportunity I have to do this. Let's say you're going to be a doctor, and 2 years in, something comes along and says, you've been in this for 2 years, And there's an opportunity for you to take your 2 years of study and go and do something in this moment that might refreshen things and might even keep things going. You might want to take a year off and do whatever that thing is to regenerate your finances, to get back on track, but you'll be still studying, you'll still be thinking, I know where I'm going. Is this bigger log of what I want to do. Or this opportunity is a distraction. Could seem a lot of fun, but I've got to stick to my track. The answer to what's the right thing to do is always within. This is how Jupiter, it doesn't waste, or rather it can feel like you're wasting a lot of your life when you are properly applying Jupiter. That's the Pisces nature of it. There's a faith that whatever I'm letting go of in order to follow my deeper journey, the deeper journey is going to take me farther in the end, even though I might be missing out on things in between. You feel like you're missing out on things in between. I could talk forever about it, and I should say thank you to everybody for listening to me while I try to roll out my spiel here. But let's bring it together. Let's start talking about the personality of Jupiter in Cancer from various books. Let's get a little bit less abstract and a little bit more into what is it that is the character of Jupiter in Cancer. As we go through, we'll talk a bit about how we can benefit from Jupiter in Cancer. So the first little bit's going to come from Stephen Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook. What we hear is that Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter being the guru of the chart, it's how one seeks to grow, improve oneself, and experience trust in life. To experience that there is a nature to the fire. There is something that's guiding us to be our best selves. There's a nature in us that's solid. It's not some wishy-washy thing that you can hope for and just hope it's going to manifest. There is a force, just like the force of fire. When you have a fire, if you have a good Jupiter, you're going to realize that it's alive. It's not this blind, dumb force, although scientists might be able to say that it is as such, just as scientists might be able to say that humanity is a blind, dumb force with no root, with no lasting root of self, of intelligence, of identity, of nature. But, this is why what works for one person doesn't work for another person. If you got two people out in the desert, one person will find ways of getting water from the cactus or leaving some upturned leaves and the moisture and dew from the leaves at night develop a bit of water that they can sustain themselves through, even if only barely, while the other person will just curse their hands and shake their fist at God for the drought. Why is it that one person can make it work and another person can't? Why is one thing better for one person than another? There's an intrinsic nature to us. And this is this trust and faith that a good Jupiter will help us develop in life. There is something, an etheric truth, that works for me. You can always tap into it by listening. Now, the Jupiter in Cancer person, they seek to grow and improve themselves through the development of cancer-related things. Beyond all abstraction, we know Cancer relates with family values, with family roots, and emotional supportiveness, as well as ancestral things. Jupiter in Cancer finds a lot of its truth, not just from astrology, but also from their ancestors. This could mean many things. Defining ancestry is an interesting topic in its own regard. But it could mean something as simple as your biological genetic nature. If you're a ninth generation person born in South America, eating certain types of foods, and your metabolism has gotten used to certain foods, a certain temperature, there's going to be aspects of that that are conducive to your well-being in your body. People reflect the roots of the region that they come from, and this is part of this root that a Jupiter in Cancer person can have a sensitivity to. Opportunities can come to them by expressing empathy and nurturing capacities when they're trying to nurture something or someone, trying to nurture a community, a job, an art project, whatever it might be. The sense of nurturing, just like you got to nurture a fire. Jupiter in Cancer will instinctively do this. And this is reflective of the nature of Guru, of Jupiter. There's a need for them to be sensitive to others' feelings in order to have confidence in themselves. There's an emotional sensitivity that's well developed in Jupiter in Cancer. In order for them to truly be confident in themselves, they want to be sensitive to other people. And this happens to them naturally, especially if Jupiter is particularly well placed. And it's good by sign here. It can still be starved by Venus and Mercury, or conjunct Saturn, or have malefic aspects to it, or be in the 7th house, or have difficulties in the sign of Pisces in Sagittarius. If Mars is conjunct Saturn in the sign of Sagittarius, that's going to damage your Jupiter a little bit, because Jupiter operates through Sagittarius. So there are things that can still harm your ability to be sensitive to people, but by sign, this Jupiter has it. And it teaches you about yourself. If you can listen to other people, the self in one is the self in all. So you develop a psychological interest through this placement. So that's why, Jupiter in Cancer ultimately has an innate understanding of the human need for security. Just like Cancer. There is a respect for developing roots of emotional, physical, financial security. Listening to your root chakra, listening to the things that you essentially need to operate stably. Jupiter in Cancer is usually going to do these things first. And not only that, but make it so that their lives are sustainable in this regard for a long time coming. These are people who don't necessarily live for the future, but they have an eye on the whole narrative. They'll probably be someone who works hard to be able to maintain security. And this could mean emotional security through the family and people that they're with, as well as financial security, developing a job, having some kind of job that is probably going to sustain them for a long time, so they can continue to do what they want to do, whatever their deeper purpose is. Now, the next reading we're going to get into, this comes from Decoding Zodiac with Pratyush Bhattacharya. It's a wonderful author who is a student of Ernst Wilhelm. As we read, we're going to learn a little bit about Jupiter. That's what's really nice about reading about an exalted planet, is that we get a sense of what the planet is trying to do. If you ever want to essentially get a sense of a planet at its most natural, read about the planet in its exaltation sign. So let's get into the nature of Jupiter, the guru, the arbiter of etheric sound, listening to the heart, listening to the self, listening to the world around you, listening to the senses, being kapha, being receptive. Jupiter is essentially, it's a sattvic planet. It's a Brahmanic planet. And so it wants to learn the nature of how things operate best. It wants to know how fire works so it can keep the fire going. And they don't necessarily, there's a lot of people whose Jupiters, essentially, they'll throw themselves into something and they don't learn quickly because their energy is just being thrown into, this is my dedication, is to do the thing, not necessarily to get dedicated to fully learning the nature of it. A good Jupiter is ergonomical. Like, you know how scissors are designed for the human hand? It's shaped to our nature. You know, why would you make scissors any other way? You know, a dog can't use scissors because it doesn't have the opposable thumb. The scissors are made for the human hand. You know, this is how I often describe Jupiter. Is imagine you've got to take a big bass amp and you have two vehicles. You can either put it in a giant box with wheels and an engine, and let's say it takes you an hour to go from Oshawa to Toronto. It takes you an hour, and you're driving for that hour, but since you're driving a box, it's not aerodynamic. You have to rev the engine a lot in order to finally get that thing there in an hour. Now imagine instead you put that big bass amp inside of a Ferrari. The Ferrari is aerodynamic. It's carved in order to cut through the air and make the journey easier. So you can get there in the same amount of time, but the Ferrari is going to take less energy. It's going to do the same job, but there's a miracle of magic happening where, because it's designed to cut through and do the job, all of a sudden you're using less energy and you have energy going forward. This is when you put the gardener inside of a garden. You put the foot soldier on a battlefield. You allow someone to go towards their nature, the way that they're designed. And this is the way that Jupiter tends to operate, through this guru, through this listening. And this is to further bring up my final point, is that just like when you're watching a fire, you're listening to how the fire works. You're not just trying to do the fire in order to get it out of the way, in order to stay warm. You're a person who is about fire. And in the same way, whenever you do any job, if you have a good Jupiter, you are going to be interested in learning how to make what you are, since you know that this is where you're going in your life. You're going to learn not only internally how to keep yourself aflame, but you're also going to listen to the field. You're going to listen to the job. You're going to listen to the boss. You're going to read about how to operate whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're a musician, if you are a firefighter, if you're a cook, if you are an accountant. You know, there's probably plenty of accountants, there's probably plenty of janitors with Jupiter in Cancer who go and they learn exactly what's needed in order to feel proud. Usually, you know, Jupiter in Exalted or in its Mula Tricona of Sagittarius, it's called Garvita, and it's proud. So Jupiter in Cancer can be a janitor, and it knows that it's contributing something as per its nature, and it's a simple nature. It doesn't need to be anything necessarily special. These are the scissors that fit my hand. And because of that, I have no mental anguish or trips about how I'm not a doctor, I'm not a rock star, I'm just a simple janitor, and then I come home and their bread is probably buttered when they come home. They get a pension from whatever they're working with, and they come home and they share this ergonomic sense of nature by listening to the people around them. And they have no hang-ups about the destiny that they've chosen for themselves. Let that sink in. Why would somebody have no hang-ups about the destiny that they've chosen for themselves? Because they listened to the destiny that they wanted, whatever that might be. So, again, I could rap about it forever, but let's get into the writing of Pratyush Bhattacharya. This is the Cancer and Jupiter interaction. What we read is that Cancer enables us to become receptive to our surroundings by opening our heart without any judgment. Remember, it's like truly listening by letting go of what you wanted to say, asking the fire how it wants to be fed instead of trying to tell it. And this is every situation, reading every situation in this way. Cancer is the emotional openness of the heart. Opening the heart through Cancer certainly makes us vulnerable to emotional pain, but each such pain inflicted helps us understand the inner mechanism of our psyche a little better. The more intense the trauma, the more illuminating it can potentially be. Cancer Jupiter people tend to use this openness of the heart to explore life in all of its profundity. This interaction produces a highly emotionally sensitive, yet profound psyche, which responds to even the tiniest emotional variation and explores it to its ultimate depth to find its origin and meaning. You're listening to why this thing doesn't work for me. Why is this relationship, this part of this relationship is struggling? And they don't just ditch it as soon as they find, oh, I don't like this aspect of this person. They have to ask themselves, what is it about me and this person that is like fire and water? Why is this not working, and can it be amended? Because for all of us, whenever we find a problem in a lover, you're going to find if you just ditch this lover and find another lover, you're going to keep finding the same thing, because usually everyone we attract is something that comes from our own unconscious. You're going to keep finding the same problem. So instead of just starting a new fire, you listen to the nature of the fire that you have, that you are. They have the Jupiter Cancer person has a natural awareness that the spark of divinity can be found within their own mind. All they have to do is dive deep enough, using the heaviness of Jupiter, guru. It means dense, there's a density to it. They have to dive deep enough using the heaviness of Jupiter into the bottomless ocean of their subconscious, where every mystery of the universe is waiting to be revealed to them. Since Moon, the ruler of Cancer, is about motherhood and about absolute emotional intimacy, this interaction tends to produce a strong craving for profoundly intimate emotional bonding with a partner, where the Jupiter and Cancer person can dive deep with their partner into each other's heart, encouraging the other person to do the same, so they can be lost in the joy of gaining inner wisdom. Wow. Their need for meaningful and transformative emotional intimacy can often become a spiritual experience for all parties involved, due to the intense profundity that they can bring into a relationship. After all, the moon, our feelings, is the experience we have of the sun, of the self, of nature. Our feelings towards things, our reaction to things. This is the place where wisdom is hiding. The only place we can look for it. Can't find it in a book. Can't even find it in a guru. If you have a good guru, they will point at the guru inside of your own heart to unfurl the mysteries from within you, through emotions, through what is internal. You know, every guru, every teacher is like a finger pointing at the moon. Don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself, which is you. Since this interaction is highly focused on understanding the inner workings of the mind, individuals with Cancer Jupiter tend to express a deep interest in learning psychology, as well as mysticism, spirituality, esoteric things, but particularly psychology as it relates to the psyche in a grounded, healthy, and secure way. Any discipline that this person believes may deepen their understanding of the human mind, and this offers them a certain joy of growth through gaining wisdom. Naturally, the Jupiter in Cancer person is interested in exploring various branches of psychology, especially the ones that are abstract and spiritual. For the same reason, these people are interested in understanding the brain and endocrine system's impact on the mind. So why does this hit of dopamine from this thing make me happy, and how can I reprogram it? You know, you'll find a lot of the people with Jupiter in Cancer have this sort of the neurohacks that we often hear about. Learning the flow of the endocrine system from above. In the same way that, you know, just anybody can have an idea of a fire and sort of spill around with it in a similar way, a good person who really wants to learn about the fire listens to the nature of it, observes it. A Jupiter in Cancer person wants to learn over top of how to make my endocrine system work the best and sustain for the longest as possible. Jupiter in Cancer shows a keen interest in literature, as well as the reason that they're interested in literature is because a well-written story is the most easily accessible playground for creating characters and studying the interaction of these characters with each other. Each person has a character and a personality, and the interaction of these is an alchemy. It's the arcs of the unconscious, the archetypes of the unconscious. We all know that these are here, and literature and mythos, these are very Jupiterian things. The idea that there is an inherent consciousness that, again, inherent arcs in consciousness that interact through an alchemy that's sometimes positive and sometimes negative. Just like pouring water on a fire is going to bum it out. In the same way, certain people interacting with each other need to understand the alchemy between each other. So a Jupiter in Cancer person is going to be into these archetypes and mythoses within the collective psyche, and they're going to find it in literature, they're going to find it in psychology, they're going to find it in movies, in art, they're going to in culture. They're interested in seeing these interactions of the arcs of mind between people, because that by doing so they realize what their own arcs are and how they can best interact with other people through their inherent nature, through the scissors that they were designed to use by the design of their soul. Since Cancer is a sattvic Brahman Rashi, remember there's tamas, which is like fear-based action, there's rajas, which is excitement-based action, and then there's sattva, which is calm nature-based action. Jupiter, as we're going to hear, it doesn't necessarily operate based on strictly passion, because passion can be addictive, it can throw us off our center. It's more of a fire, sun thing. You know, if someone is all sun with no Jupiter, then they're going to push themselves to, this is what makes me passionate, and I need to push myself to be passionate in this way. But that passion can be unsustainable. That's like putting lots of tiny twigs inside the fire, watching it go constantly. Oh, I got to put more of these little twigs on here because this is what the fire wants the most. Jupiter says, no, big twigs, medium twigs, little twigs, let it flow. The excitement will come, but it should come from the nature of what the self wants. That's different for everybody, and you have to listen to yourself. Listen to the flow of your endocrine system in order to find out what's the most natural way to sustain your passions. This is sattva. Now, Cancer, Jupiter is sattvic, and Cancer is also sattvic. The sattvic planet is maintaining its sattva through the sign it's in. And in this case, the sign it's in happens to also be sattvic. Since Cancer is a sattvic Brahmin Rashi, each of the 4 elements relates to one of the classes. There's the Shudras, which is like the working people, the air signs. There's the earth signs, which is sort of the mercantile class. There's the fire signs, which are Kshatriyas, and then there's the water signs, which are Brahmins. So Cancer is sattvic Brahmin Rashi, and the moon rules the water element of the Brahmins. So Jupiter in Cancer is ideal. Cancer in general is ideal for cognizing abstract ideas in its highest and most sophisticated forms. It's interesting, sometimes astrology is a mutual generation of things. Cancer is like that because Jupiter is exalted there, and Jupiter is exalted there because Cancer is like that. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? They're both a mutual arising. So the Jupiter in Cancer person is naturally expert at exploring abstractions of all kinds, especially emotional and spiritual ones that relate to the human experience. So Jupiter's desire to understand reality at its deepest and most abstract level is most likely to be fulfilled by Cancer's abilities. Ultimately, if you want to get into the deepest philosophy of what it is to be human, if you want to get into the deepest philosophy in general, you're not going to get there by quantum physics and learning the thermodynamics of particles. That can be cool, but the bigger question is, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to my experience on planet Earth? And this is what this is saying. Jupiter doesn't waste its time with trifling knowledge that's not going to bring it joy. The philosophical understanding of life produced by this interaction often turns out to be utterly profound and original. That's a key word too, is that it's original. Because Jupiter is a very original, creative thing. Because, they say everything under the sun has already been done, but everything was always done by listening within to the nature, because the self in one is the self in all, and that is always going to be new and fresh. No matter how many thousands of years we get down the line, there will always be new ways for me to interact with the elements of nature. This wisdom of Jupiter, especially Jupiter in Cancer, manifests itself in a unique set of moral codes that are highly sophisticated and effective in ironing out wrinkles of moral dilemmas. Often, individuals with Jupiter in Cancer are perceived as wise guiding figures in their community who can help people suffering from emotional or moral distress find proper perspective, purpose, and inner peace. No matter what, this person could again just be a janitor, or they work like my brother does in the construction field. He's just a general laborer. He does, he does what he does in his job. He works very hard at it. And I think most people, when you see somebody like that, you never know what you expect for someone in the labor force. But when you talk to my brother, you'd be amazed at, if you assumed by the cover of the book that there would be a certain level of consciousness, there's a deep psychologist inside this person who really reads into the nature of human character, especially because Jupiter in Cancer, my brother's a very Aquarian person, so he finds all walks of life and talks to them all, and they all are looking for the same thing, which is the bliss of the self, and he's very aware of that. So these people can become like village leaders, town psychologists of their friend group, etc. Although, just like with anything, your boundaries are useful for a person like this, because people come to these people because they're so sensitive in this way. Since this interaction produces a certain clarity about the meaning and significance of life, individuals with this interaction do not feel a need to believe in an external ideology. Their inner moral compass tends to be so well calibrated that they themselves become the guru instead of necessarily seeking one. Their understanding about the significance of life in its essence, it has a spiritual essence to it, which is built around the intuitive realization that every aspect of creation emerges from the same source. Call it the heart, call it consciousness, call it what you will. But there is a symmetry to the tributaries of the rivers all coming from the same source. At a physical level, this interaction produces growth by producing a very strong yet sustainable sense of purpose. Unlike fire, which can come about from a sense of passion, especially Jupiter in fire signs, the sense of purpose that comes from a Jupiter in Cancer person, it doesn't arise strictly from passion for its own sake, but from a certain selfless altruism of doing things devotionally, kind of giving. It's more like a water. It's a constant I love you. Due to their highly sensitive minds, individuals with this interaction feel deeply concerned about the emotional and moral distress of humanity. They want their understanding of life and the resultant worldview to become a solution for humanity's suffering, and often not just humanity, but also ecology on the whole. Nature, the fire, it's alive. You don't want to pour water on it. You want it to give it what it needs in order to work best. When you have that kind of relationship with fire, you actually care about it. And they see this same care for everything in the universe as themselves. Myself, the trees, the droughts and the rivers, the pollution, the toxin. I relate to all of these as if they were myself. So this allows one to explore and understand the origin of their own deepest emotions. And this can bring a certain inner peace and clarity that our friend Pratyush Bhattacharya says can be best termed as self-realization. What is the nature of self? As well, biologically, Cancer-Jupiter interaction produces fertility. A healthy Jupiter indicates an abundance of what we call kapha, a certain physiological attribute in Ayurveda, which is said to accelerate the semen regeneration and balance the menstrual cycle. Sunil Kalsi has asked, they've got Jupiter in Leo and it's retrograde, so it's moving towards Cancer. There is some truth that there would be a resonance for you there. Jupiter in Leo is a pretty okay place for Jupiter, and it's retrograde. Could be other things that are delighting it. So it's very possible that anyone who's into astrology might very well find themselves being a Jupiterian person. So a lot of us might resonate with what we're reading about Jupiter here because it's the self and all, right? And Jupiter in Cancer is going to have the qualities we're describing here, whatever house it's in. The house it's in is going to describe how I resonate, what arena of life these things resonate through. You know, what is Cancer to the rising sign? In this case, you're probably a Scorpio rising or something around there. So Cancer as the 9th house is going to resonate in that way. It's going to probably do good things for the house that it owns. My computer's being whack right now. But it's good. So we're already an hour in, folks. So let's start moving towards talking a little bit about the something we often talk about at the very end of these Jupiter readings is how Jupiter in the sign manifests specifically for women. Because women have Jupiter, I should say women and those who identify with womanhood are going to have a certain magnetism related to Jupiter as the planet of marriage, the planet of truly seeking a husband with this character quality. Men seek their Venus in women, and women seek their Jupiter in their men. And this goes to show that every partner we get is an attraction coming from ourselves. For women, they look for the qualities of their own Jupiter in their partner. Not necessarily just men, because there are plenty of lesbian and bisexual women who have Jupiter in Cancer who will look for the qualities of their Jupiter in their partner. Gay couples tend to use a bit of both planets, a bit of Venus and a bit of Jupiter. So, women with Jupiter in Cancer, they tend to seek men who act as a guiding influence in their life, both materially and spiritually. And this is, of course, how Jupiter operates. Is Jupiter, again, is not abstract to the point of being impractical. Ironically, you'll find a lot of false guru types. Not always. Jupiter in Capricorn can be a wonderful place for Jupiter and can produce wonderful teachers and enlightened people. But it's good to keep in mind that Jupiter in Capricorn can have people getting into the abstract idea of spirituality, but they have a hard time bringing it down to the, you got to teach what's within to who's in front. They have a hard time making it practical to the lived experience of the person that they're talking to. Jupiter in Cancer knows how to make it manifest so that the person can be materially abundant within their spiritual desires and devotion that they seek to serve. Material abundance tends to come from self, from our own nature. So women will look for men. Women with Jupiter in Cancer are going to look for men who remind them of what side their bread of their soul is buttered on, who remind them of their nature and guide them to use their nature in a way that will bring both material abundance as well as devotional abundance. And this is exactly what women should be looking for in men. This is a world-class lesson on what, I often say that there's nothing more powerful than the magnetism of a woman. And when a woman knows what they want to get, it's coming. So a woman better have their priorities figured out. They better understand what it is that they seek in a man. Every woman should read this aspect of Jupiter exalted, because Jupiter is the guiding force of everybody, but particularly for a woman's partner. And no matter what placement a person has for their Jupiter, if they have Jupiter wherever, they should still be looking for these qualities in a man. They're going to find these qualities are in a partner no matter what they have. If they got Jupiter in Virgo, like I do, if they're a woman with Jupiter in Virgo, they're going to find a man with Virgo qualities. But that man has a Jupiter. And she should be looking to apply her man to these qualities. Now, thankfully, you ladies, if you're watching this and you got Jupiter in Cancer, you are going right for, you're cutting out the middleman. You are going for the right type of man. Keep in mind, you should always still be discerning. Don't just listen to me and say, oh, good, my natural intuition is going to pick the best man for me anyway. The key to Jupiter in Cancer is that you're constantly listening, not to Dustin, but to the guru within yourself to find if this is the right man for you. Now let's look at the objective qualities that might guide us to the sense that you are looking at the right man. Not only universally for the sake of Jupiter at its best, but also for a Jupiter in Cancer woman. So you're looking for a man who acts as a guiding influence in your life, both materially and spiritually. These women are looking for an emotional connection with their male partner that goes beyond the ordinary. This is a key aspect of this. And Pratyush Bhattacharya describes it well. Since Jupiter is associated with the Svadhisthana chakra, the Svadhisthana chakra is there's the root, and then there's the navel, not the solar plexus. That's the third chakra. It's the second one. The Svadhisthana chakra is the orangey one that people say relates with guilt. And this guilt can occur if you are not well aligned with Jupiter. So Jupiter is associated with the Svadhisthana chakra, the warm orange chakra. And when healthy, it produces creativity and a strong desire to develop intimacy with a creative partner at physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. So a woman is going to look for, just like with the fire, you need to know how to make the fire, listen to the nature of fire, to know what sticks to put at what time to make it burn for the longest. So when you're with a man and you find at the physical level, it's easy to talk about working out financial things, and when there's problems, it's easy to talk about, like what side of the bed am I sleeping on and what side are you sleeping on? If you have a hard time discussing these basic physical aspects of your reality with a man, then there's a problem with the fire. And you need to listen to it, and if it can't be worked out, you got to consider if this is the right man for you. Because this is what women have to do, is they have to find that it's fun and genuinely inspirationally creative, because it will be. You'll find that there are people, especially with you having Jupiter in Cancer, where you can talk about the basic shit with a man, and it's like fun for you guys to talk about these difficult things. Like there will always be people with whom you have difficulties, and it's tough to talk about those difficulties. Even with a good man. The difference is that there will be men who there's just the way that you two interact together. It's air and fire. It's not water and fire. They don't burn you out every time you want to talk about difficulties or working out creatively. Not just solutions, but working out what do we want to do with our lives in the future. What kind of house do we want to have together? And can we work out emotional things between each other in a way that's like a breeze? That's like fun. Can we have fun talking about the things that we discuss with each other? Now, it's not always going to be peaches and cream talking about difficulties with your partner. But there is an ergonomic design that you can find with certain men where it's fire and air. You're both just breathing air into each other, and it's fun. It's more fun. So you got to keep your eye out for this. And a woman with a good Jupiter is not going to be enough that the man has lots of money. It's not going to be enough that the man is he's a big, tough man, and so he's going to develop good children with good, strong genes. A woman with Jupiter in Cancer those can all be cool, fun, extra things. But on the basic point of it, do our spirits enkindle each other physically, emotionally, and mentally? Does the fire sustain? How do you put in less effort to gain more energy? This is learning the nature of the fire, asking the fire, what does it want? You are a fire. What does it want? Give it that. Don't put in wet wood by taking a man that's, this is a nice big hunk of wood right here. It's wet, it's soggy, it's going to kill your fire in 5 years. But you didn't think about that because, that's assuming somebody didn't have a good Jupiter. You do have a good Jupiter. So listen to the fire in you and what fires you up with a man. So, therefore, women with this interaction, they want the father of their children to be highly creative, emotionally intelligent, and compassionate. And they want it to be a man with whom they may not only experience the biological act of creation, but creativity in many other forms and many other dimensions than just, this guy's going to make good babies for me. It's, how are we going to interact with each other down the line? Is it going to be sustainable? Are we going to hate each other? And really, this comes down to it in a lot of ways. Is this man amenable to my emotional wisdom? Because a woman with Jupiter in Cancer is probably going to have great emotional wisdom, or at least a sense of herself. This will happen to you as time goes on, especially women. Once they're 32, they're going to find that they want to seek partners who enkindle this fire in a natural way that's easy, that's fun, that's not necessarily always and terribly exciting, but it's exciting when it's supposed to be, and it's calm when it's supposed to be. All women should abide by this listening to their energy. It's the woman that really attracts the nature of the Jupiter as the bottom line of things. And this doesn't mean that you can't be open to the type of man that you have attracted or that you have. Whatever the case, let me just say, if you're a woman and you have Jupiter in Cancer, let me tell you that you are one of the most profound ways that the great benefic Jupiter can operate through humanity, by you just showing up and being honest to the nature of the fire inside of yourself, by explaining to your man what you need as a fire to be best cultivated. You are what your man is attracted. The man is what you have attracted. It's a mutual thing, of course. The woman is the one receiving, and Jupiter is Kappa. It is the master of this receiving. So it's very important that women with Jupiter in Cancer recognize how important it is for you to perpetuate this truth of Jupiter by receiving and listening to the fire inside yourself and communicating it with the man that you have. And if you are single, make sure that the man you get is one that will listen and that you can have fun communicating between your natures. Because there's nothing more fun than natures that are working together like the human hand, like a pair of scissors in the human hand, like they're designed for each other. Aesthetic, erotic choice. Why is it that orange works with blue? You see people, they wear clothing, and blue and orange work together very well, just like the evening sun going down. Why does that work in our brains? There's just a natural aesthetic harmony there. So if you're the blue, you got to find your orange. Or if you're an orange, you got to find your blue. There is aesthetic harmonic dynamics between souls that can be proliferated so long as you listen to what the fire wants. Wonderful. We have somebody, Millie is saying that the emotional connection is important to her. Amazing. So, everybody, I think we've gone long enough. I had a feeling this would go kind of long because it's Jupiter's exaltation point. By the end, I'm in a new zone here. I think it took me a moment to settle in, but I think by the end we got feeling pretty good. I feel pretty good about our session today. Hello, Incognito. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. My name is Dustin Cormier, and this has been another episode of How to Rock Astrology. I don't think next Thursday, I'm going to be a bit busy. But after that, we're going to keep flying. We still got lots of nakshatras to go through. I recently got pictures for our rising signs. So we're going to be doing the rising signs pretty soon as well. I've only done about 7 of them. Each one of them is a long master class. So keep your eyes peeled for those. You're going to see them coming along on my channel as they come along. Keep in mind as well, at some point, I'm writing a book. That's going to be coming along any point too. You're going to be hearing about it on my channel when it comes along. Nice to see you, Sunil. Nice to see you, Tropical Galactica. Theo, nice to see you, my friend. Hello, Teresa. It's nice to see you here as well. I love all you guys. It's a blessing for me to be able to have a community full of people who come and hang out with me when I do my thing. I really love it, and I really appreciate it. Keep your eyes peeled. We got more stuff coming. I'm going to go into Toronto today. I'm going to try to do some cold reads. It's something I've always wanted to get going into. You guys will see. I think I'm going to start videotaping them eventually, too. We'll see how it goes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your